Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's your man Jay Will. So I want to talk to you today about buying a smartphone. So there are tons of smartphones out there, but how do you pick the right one that's for you? There's a lot of video reviews that I've done, and you see reviews on YouTube from 1,000 people telling you this is the best smartphone. I will buy this one. You should buy this one. Well, it's time for you to do your own research and figure out how you would like to buy your next smartphone. So if you've never had a smartphone, this will be a good video for you. You're trying to transition from flip phone or just standard phone to a smartphone. So the first thing you need to think about is price. The price of a smartphone can really deter you, or it can excite you one way or the other. It's going to be a determining factor, and probably the main determining factor on how you buy your smartphone. Now, I know that carriers have a lot of options out there to finance a phone that's $500 to $1,000. But what if you do that and you're not happy with the phone and you say, you know what, this phone is not worth $500 or $1,000? What do? You might be stuck with it, so you'll have to try to figure out how to sell it. It could just go bad for you. So the first thing you should try to figure out is how much you want to spend. That should be something that should be one of the first things on your list. Next, the size. How big of a phone do you actually want if you're considering buying a smartphone? You've got to consider these things, because if you buy a phone that's too small and you start to really enjoy doing media content and just, you want to type fast, it could be a lot of things that will sway you away from a phone that's too small for whatever you could consider too small. And then on the flip side of that, if you buy a phone that's too big, you might be thinking, I don't want to lug this thing around. So make sure you have the right size of the device that you feel is going to be most comfortable in your hand. And the best way to do this is to get out there, go to the stores, and pick them up and hold them and find out which one feels the best to you if you have family members that already have smartphones. But I say go to the stores, get some hands-on time, and pick them up and play with them, and you'll figure out which one you really like best. Put it in your pocket, put it in your purse, whatever it is, and you'll find out which one you think is best size for you. So next is, these are kind of not in order at this point because this is kind of subjective, so you'll need to determine which one of these are important to you. So next on my list is going to be performance. Now, how a phone performs, you won't be able to find that out in the 25 minutes or 30 minutes that you play with it at the store, but you will find out later on, because you're going to decide, okay, man, I like how this thing performs brand new, but 2 months later, I'm starting to have a lot of problems. So when I say performance, I know if you're not a techie, but ask questions to sales reps like, what processor is in here? Or, is that a new processor? Or, how is this going to perform in your experience compared to this phone over here that has probably a different processor? Just do some research, because sometimes the processor inside, if it's a big fancy processor, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the best performer. So you have to weigh this into consideration with the operating system. The operating system is one thing that's going to maybe help you determine which way you want to go when it comes to buying a smartphone. So there's a few operating systems out there now. There used to be a whole bunch more, but it's gotten very limited. And there's some people will say there's just Android and there's just iOS. But there's still Windows Phone, even though it doesn't have much support or any support. And then there's still BlackBerry. There's still Symbian phones out there. There's still phones out there with proprietary operating systems that don't get a lot of love because of Android and because of iOS. But they are there. But honestly, I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to be choosing between an Android and an iOS device. So you have to get out there and you have to play with them to find out which one is going to perform and do the tasks that you want it to do. That's something that you really need to get used to, and it could take you a little bit of time to figure this out. You might have to use that 14-day return period. You might like something about iOS, and then you might like something about Android. You might find that Android does this better than iOS, or you might find that iOS does this better than Android. However, there's a ton of other things that Android does better, or there's a ton of other things that iOS does better. So you're going to have to do your research when buying a smartphone. One important thing on the list is battery. Now, battery, we've learned here that you can't determine the battery performance by the size of the battery. You have to weigh this heavily on the user. You'll determine how good your battery is, because I've got phones with 2200 milliamp batteries and 2700 milliamp batteries that last longer than my phones with 3,500 milliamp hour batteries or 3,000 milliamp hour batteries. So this is something that you're going to have to really do some research on and determine how you want to, or what's going to be in this phone that you're buying. Now, I will say this. I'm going to tip my hat to Apple for their iPhones, their iPhone Pluses. Their iPhone Pluses have fantastic battery, and I just happen to have one of my sitting right here. So the iPhone Plus models have really good battery, really good standby time, and that's where some Android phones fall short with their standby time. Now, there's a ton of Android phones out there that have great standby time and have much better battery life than iOS, than iPhone Plus models. But when you get into the store, you might be pushed to buy a Samsung phone or an iPhone. So weigh out heavily what you decide you want to do. You got to take control of that situation and don't be swayed by reps who tell you that iOS is better or iPhones are better or Samsungs are better. You do the research, because in reality, there's phones out there like Huawei that you can walk into a store and pick up, LG, there's a Motorola, there's a ton of phones out there that have way better battery than both of the companies at this name. So do your research. Another thing is cameras. Now, cameras are something that's really important to people, because I've seen people shopping and the first thing they do is pick up the phone and start taking photos. They start doing video. They start looking through that viewfinder, trying to find out, is this a great phone? Is this camera going to be really good? And then they pick up another phone and they start doing video and trying to figure out if this one's better than this one. So be sure to, now you could ask someone which camera is better, but I don't recommend you do that. I think you should just pick up the cameras and use them yourself. You will be a lot happier, and you leave some things you have to take ownership with when you're buying a smartphone. Yeah, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to use them and not just ask questions all the time. You're going to have to get out there and do the legwork. So cameras, totally subjective. Some people like oversaturated. Some people like the flatter look. It is all about what your eyes like. So try to avoid asking another person which camera is better. And this is the one time I would definitely recommend that you hit YouTube after you watch this video and go through my channel and see. I've done tons of camera comparisons. And you see kind of weigh it out. I shoot the same area when doing camera reviews to give you some sense of, okay, I can hold up two screens and put them next to each other and I can see which one I like better. So do your research on your cameras and use them. Get out there and do the test for yourself. I think you'll be a lot happier. I'm pretty sure you will be. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about is features. Some phones are feature rich. I mean, they just have every feature that you could possibly want in a smartphone. And some have too many features to where it's overwhelming and you get kind of bogged down and you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done this. However, you determine what you want in a phone and what you want it to do. Now, as I said after the second thing, these are not kind of in order. So you determine how you want to place them in order when you're doing your shopping. However, I will tell you that if you want a phone that does a whole bunch and you got to work, you got to do this, you're going to use it for work purposes, there's a couple of phones out there that I could recommend. At the top of my list will be the Galaxy Note 8. And if you have a budget like that, definitely the Galaxy Note 8. And if you have a smaller budget, the LG Stylo 3 Plus. Because those phones have an addition of some kind of pencil or pen, for note takers, this is a huge factor for people who do a lot of writing and art and business. It's just a lot that comes along with it. So features are something that you're interested in. You really need to have that. Weigh out your options, and this is going to play a part in your budget as well. Determine if you want to put all that money on your credit card at one time. Determine if you want to finance it through a carrier. Determine how you want to do it. So these are just a few things that I decided to pick out to help you in your smartphone shopping journey, and wonder how you guys would put these things in order. So be sure to look in the description of the video, and you put them in the order that you think that they're most important, because this is just from where I'm sitting. So you might say the complete opposite. You might say that price isn't a factor. You might say that I don't really care about battery. I want features first. I want cameras first. So you weigh it out. This is your man Jay Will, smartphone shopping guide. Just a few tips for you. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.